So the rise of Christian nationalism in the UK is a real thing, with the likes of Nick Tenconi supposedly being that face. And in this video, we're going to talk about Nick Tenconi, UKIP, and what is actually happening and what are they saying, and is it biblical, is it what Jesus of Nazareth would have said, and much more.
We will be sending the illegals home. We are also here today to march for the deportations of left-wing extremists. We want the communists gone.
So, I mean, just on its face, right, saying we want the communists gone, the left-wing extremists. One, who is left-wing extreme? Obviously, there are people who are left-wing extreme. There are communists. There are people in that branch of things. 100%, I'm not denying that. But to say basically, oh, if you don't agree with me, you should be deported. How is that in line with what Jesus spoke about at all? I mean, you really think Jesus would be saying, you should be gone, you should be deported in 2026? You think he would be that bloke saying that? The Palestinian refugee who hated the rich, well, not hated the rich, but didn't like the rich, you really think he would be the bloke out there being like, if you disagree with me, we want you deported? I don't think it said that in the Gospels that much, you know. And whatever your views are of immigration or deportations, right, which I think there's loads of kind of interesting arguments on both sides. I'm not a tribal hack in that sense. Like, I think there's some valid arguments for certain deportations. You know, if someone has a criminal record, they're here illegally. You know, there's massive questions over should we deport them. Like a few decades ago, that definitely would be the case. Before Blair, there was obviously a kind of more mainstream position. I think most people would support that. But there's a difference between that and saying, like, if you don't fit with my ideology, you should go. Because then it's like, well, what did Jesus, you know, do? He didn't come, famously, he didn't come to help the righteous, help the correct ones, quote unquote, you know. He came to help the hurt, the downtrodden. You know, I came here for the sinners. I came to serve, not to be served. And when Nick Tenconi comes out and he's like, we must deport the communists, we must deport the Islamists. I mean, mate, come on. Do you really, in your heart, believe that this is what Jesus was about? Do you really think if Jesus was here in 2026, he would be on your side? Whatever you think of the stand up to racism lot, and I think there's definitely some wacky people there, and 100%. I mean, it's fair to say, I don't think he'd be on this side of things. And that's not to say he'd also be on the stand up to racism side, because I think there's definitely a fair few people of those who do have almost disgust for regular people who do have concerns around mass immigration, who do have concerns around an increased proportion of Muslims in the UK. You know, there are some, I think, constructive views you can have about these issues because they're complex. You know, the way we want Britain to be does matter, and you know, you do need to have some sort of border, or you do need to have some sort of control over what happens, and there have been serious issues in certain communities. There have been issues where, you know, wages are undercut by importing cheap overseas labour. Now, that doesn't mean those people are evil. Doesn't mean those people are bad. That doesn't mean we should show hate to those people, because they're just taking opportunities like anyone else. But the way we structure things, the way our economy works, definitely needs addressing. Like, we are, you could say, too reliant on cheap over-skilled labour, but that doesn't mean you should be hateful towards anyone. I mean, the notion that you go from like, this is how we should structure economy, to, oh, those people over there are scum. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And it's not coming from a place of love. But anyway, we'll see what other wisdom Nick Tenconi has here.
Whilst politicians and public servants and influencers on the right pontificate endlessly about the root cause of our downfall, we act, we inspire, we shift the needle. The truth is, we have not gone far enough. It is time to detain and deport left-wing terrorists.
He's very specific there on the left-wing terrorism thing, you know, very, very specific, really getting into the nitty-gritty detail of what it means to be a left-wing terrorist. I mean, can I also say, right, even if you do think we should have mass deportations of any far-left person, of, you know, what, like, you agree with all that, right? To come out as a political party with a banner that says mass deportations now, of any political issue in the UK, to come out and that be the one issue you put, just seems crazy to me. We got millions of people going to food banks. We got homeless people on the streets. You know, let's say you came out with a banner that said, it's a national disgrace, we have homeless veterans. I'd be like, fair play to you, mate. You know, if he said we should be, you know, let's say he said we shouldn't be, I don't know, housing asylum seekers. Let's say he said that. Well, he does say that, but like, let's say he says that, we should have 0 asylum seekers at all. We should deport anyone, right? And he said, well, let's put that money to housing veterans. And that was the sign. People, I think, could get behind that, actually. And he would have some support. But to just simply have the mass deportations now, you know, there's so many issues, mate. Like, I mean, our sluggish economy, people aren't working, you know, young people aren't going into work, people are depressed, you know, people are taking their lives every day, people, you know, millions of families going to food banks, you know, we're paying record high electricity prices compared to the rest of Europe. Like, these are issues where it's like, what, you know, but to just zone in on this one issue and act like this is the end all be all, it's just, I think it's kind of ludicrous, you know? Even if you do completely agree with it, it's just like, there's so many other issues, mate. Like, you know, one thing to put on a banner out of anything, you put this, is that really, you know, the number one issue? There is nothing more than the sanctity and the incredibleness of a mass deportation. I beg to differ.
These people want the collapse of society. These people want British blood to be spilt.
Nothing like good faith arguments. Those people over there want the worst thing ever. That is pretty hilarious. You know, obviously it's not great what you're saying there, but you can't help but find that a bit funny.
They despise our values. They despise Christianity. They despise our political ideology. They wouldn't hesitate to kill us or to lock us up.
Right, so it's one thing to disagree with someone, it's another thing, bearing in mind, right, there's a bunch of security in front, so it's like, how could he even see the people he's saying want to kill him? Oh my goodness. It's, you know, I think if he was like, these people need to respect our right to protest, I'd be like, fair enough, they probably are calling for the banning of this protest, and that's wrong. You should be for free speech. We're in a liberal democracy. People have different views. If you don't like it, this is the UK. We do believe in democratic rights. But to say basically, those people over there, I can't even see with my line sight because there's so many security want to murder us. I mean, mate, come on, like you can't even see them. How do you know what's going on in their minds? Oh.
These people started the culture war. It is their narcissism, their hatred of Christianity, their hatred of the family, their sick, twisted ideology of Marxism that creates these far-left nests that turn our former glorious towns and cities into no-go zones.
I also just want to make the point about Jesus as well. Like, Jesus didn't like the wealthy. Like, there's a lot of people argue, well, he was kind of more of a libertarian. You can make some good arguments about that, you know, give Caesar's what Caesar's. He definitely was a fan of the state. Maybe he was an anarchist, but the kind of consensus people have around what Jesus said is he did not like the wealthy. Now, if Jesus was going around now saying, you know, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for the rich person to inherit the kingdom of God, how do you think it'd be characterised now? Or famously when he tells the parable about a man who, well, not a parable, about a guy who comes up to him and he's done everything in the book, he's listened to Jesus, he's followed what he says, I think he's followed what he says, and he says to Jesus, you know, what can I do to inherit the kingdom of God? I've done everything. Jesus says to him, you know, sell all your possessions. And famously, the guy goes away sad because he hadn't done everything he had. His heart was still attached to earthly possessions, which was money, and he went away sad. And Jesus reiterates this of the rich. You know, it's the rich people who didn't like Jesus. It wasn't the poor, the downtrodden. They weren't out there being like, we hate Jesus, he's the worst. No, it was the wealthy people. It was the Pharisees. It was religious leaders, you know, the Jewish Sanhedrin, they would have had more money than other people because they're in high positions. Like, they hated Jesus. Obviously, not everyone. You had certain, you know, Nicodemus famously. But the notion that, like, Jesus was, you know, absolutely hated anything left wing. You know, you could make the argument where he was kind of a libertarian anarchist type of guy. You can make that argument, fair enough. And you could actually make the argument maybe he didn't like tax, he didn't like the state, he wanted more community. And I think there's some interesting arguments there. But the notion that Jesus hated kind of left-wing economics or lefties, I do not know how you get to that conclusion. I mean, look at James. Look at the book of James. He rags on the rich, the powerful, the wealthy, you know, so much. Look at Timothy. Look at Paul. Like, mate, I don't know how someone gets to that conclusion. I really do not understand it. So, you know, it's one thing to believe Jesus to be, maybe he wasn't a communist, maybe he was a bit more of a libertarian, but to act like he hated those that were kind of economically left-wing, whatever that meant back then, by the way. But like the notion that that was the case is, I do not know how someone gets to that conclusion. And I also want to make clear as well, right, because I'm ragging on Nick a lot here, and I do think he is deluded in a lot of his views. I will never say he's not a Christian, because no one can ever denounce you of that. And if he's got love for Jesus in his heart, God bless him, and I do wish him the absolute best. I will judge him based on his heart posture and how he acts and stuff like that. But I am a mere sinner. I'm a mere mortal myself, if you want to call it that. I'm not going to say he's not Christian. Similarly, I'm not going to say a person part of ISIS is not a Muslim. I don't know, you know. I think we always got to remember that we can't be self-righteous about the way we judge people, because he's got to conclusion about the way Britain has been on his own accord, right? And it's interesting, you know, I obviously disagree with him a lot here, and I do question, does he know Jesus in certain ways? I know Jesus, but I will not say, if he says he's Christian, he believes Jesus was the Son of God, then I have to take value of what he says, because who am I to say he doesn't believe that? Only he knows if he believes it or not. So I'm not going to say he's not a Christian, and I just want to make that clear. Wherever you stand politically, I will never ever say someone's not a Christian, because I think that is so wrong. I think, you know, we cannot say that someone isn't something. If they say they believe in Jesus, is the Son of God, then they are. And I just want to make that clear, because I don't want it to come across that I'm being self-righteous here and view him, you know, Nick, as a complete non-Christian believer, because you know, who am I to say he's not a believer? Obviously, I think what he's saying here is a bit ludicrous, and I do think he has extremely misguided views. But again, if he says he's Christian, ladies and gentlemen.
Detain and deport the illegals. Detain and deport the migrants who have trashed our culture and our faith, and send the communists home with them.
So send the communists home, but then, mate, what if they were born and bred in the UK? Now, he could say, well, if their parents are immigrants, we should deport them back to that country. But what if not? What if they were born here and their whole family's English, but they've come to the conclusion that communism is the best way for our country? Where do we send them back home? Do we give them a plane ticket to some place to deport them to? But then where? And then the issue is, well, why should that country take them in? Because you don't like them. So you'll form mass immigration to another country, but you're going to take away their sovereignty of a country to decide if they should come in or not, and they should just accept what we say. I mean, it doesn't go that far to really unpick this, and I'm not even an expert. I'm just like some random bloke on YouTube. You know, how does this work? Are we going to be pro mass immigration for another country, take away their sovereignty as a nation and their nationhood, and just be like, no, you're taking these communists? Why should they take them? I mean, even this, you know, and I'm stretching myself to the point, like, let's say I did agree with this, how would this work in practice? You would have to be for mass immigration of a place, and I'm sure Nick supported Brexit and all that, which is fair enough. And, you know, Brexit in many parts was about the sovereignty of a nation. Whether you're left-wing or right-wing, people felt like, you know, we should be controlling things. If we want to keep a factory open, it should be down to us. We shouldn't have to, you know, join the paradigm of the kind of neoliberal consensus around Europe, and the EU should not be deciding things here. We're a democracy. We should decide things here democratically, not you know, a foreign place deciding what goes on here. And I think there's some very interesting arguments there. Wherever you sit on the political spectrum, people, both left-wing and right-wing, supported Brexit. You know, Corbyn was a massive Eurosceptic. He did, some people say, sold out. Some people said where he adopted with the political norm of the time and stuff. But it's fair to say that it's across the board. There's lefties, there's right-wingers who support Brexit. And it's very interesting. It's a fascinating issue. But if you support Brexit, but also, and you do respect the sovereignty of a nation, I don't know how you could support sending people home to a place that isn't their home and then forcing a nationhood to accept something. Because the whole reason Nick doesn't like immigration is because he feels that, you know, we have, you know, clearly people don't want immigration. They want it reduced. Government after government, manifesto after manifesto has promised that. The British public clearly don't want mass immigration. It's very clear on the polling. Look at YouGov. You know, you check it, not me. It's not a fringe position, right? And you could say, well, it's clearly not democratic. People don't want it, and it's happened again and again. So why should you impose that to another country that doesn't want it? You know, it just seems a bit ludicrous. But anyway, we'll see what other wisdom the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Tenconi imparts here.
I tell you another thing, Bristol, for a city that's apparently so hard, if commies rocked up in a conservative Christian town ordering us all to be deported, we'd be putting up a better fight than this.
Nothing like turning the other cheek, is there? You know, famously in the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus was preaching, he famously, you know, he said, if someone asks for your coat, you know, don't just give them their coat, give them more clothing. If someone tells you to walk a mile, you know, walk more. If someone, you know, hits you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. When Jesus was telling that sermon as well, the radical thing about it was that the Jews didn't want to hear that. They were angry about the occupation of their lands by Romans, because they felt like, you know, we need to get rid of us. And a lot of people wanted there to be a revolution. You know, you had the zealots, you had people with this anger in their heart. A lot of people say this is one of the main reasons Judas betrayed Jesus, because he wanted Jesus to be this radical figure that was like, no, we're going to fight back, we're going to take back control and all this stuff. And Jesus was like, no, the way through is love. It's not fighting. It's not we attack you. No, it's love. And it's incredible that Christianity actually spread in that environment, because the Jews were craving someone to come along and be like, we must take back control. I am the person to do it. We're going to take back control from the Romans. This is our land. We've been persecuted for years. The Messiah will rock up. But actually he was like, no, we need to show love to our fellow Roman. We need to show love to everyone, regardless of, you know, economic status, whether you're a prostitute, whether you're treated as scum of the earth tax collector as Matthew was. We are going to show love to anyone and everyone. And that was his message. It wasn't like, no, if you come here and fight, we're going to fight even harder and destroy you. I don't remember that quite in the Gospels, you know.
You guys, lean into it. Patriots, they fear us. They feel fear. What do with the school bully? You stand up to him and you give him a bloody nose. Today.
I mean, all right, that's one thing I agree with him. I think if someone is, you know, there's righteous anger, and you can make the equivalent of Jesus flipping the tables in the temple. You can make that argument. You could say, what's his name? Goliath something. It's really embarrassing. I can't remember. Something in Goliath where they have the fight, the small guy. So, you know, you can make maybe a bit of a argument there. Interesting stuff, Nick.
We show the entire world how pathetic and weak communists are as they meet Christian courage. No excuses, no diplomacy, no mercy, and...
Oh, right. Mate. He's got a cross in the background and he says no mercy. I don't think there is anything, almost anything, you could say that could be further away from Jesus' teachings than no mercy. I mean, the central claim of Christianity is forgiveness, atonement, the crucifixion. We don't deserve God's love, but he loves us anyway. If mercy, if the way we are depended on the mercy we should be shown, Famously, I think it was William, I can't remember his name, the theologian said famously, if the world was just and moral, we'd all be hanging on the cross. In the sense that we are not worthy. And that's the radicalness of Christianity. It's like you will make up, you will mistake, you will sin, you will do the worst things, you'll have shame, but you are loved anyway. Jesus loves you, God loves you, he sees your faults, he sees your downfall, but it's that unconditional love that is so, so beautiful about Christianity. And Nick is saying, no mercy. I find that perplexing. How can anyone read the Bible? How can anyone view scripture and think no mercy? Even if you're going to an Old Testament perspective, the Israelites were like disobedient to God when they got, Exodus, when they were freed from, being slaves, they went out to the wilderness, then they started worshipping false gods. And Jesus was the fulfillment of the prophecy, spoken in Isaiah, the coming Messiah. And he was going to push things to a place of what God really intended, because they kept getting it wrong over and over and over and over again. And then Jesus was the lamb. He was the ultimate sacrifice to make the path straight. Imagine if God was like, no mercy. No, you messed up. We freed you from Egypt. We brought Moses. You still didn't listen. We're done with you. No mercy. Jesus was the ultimate mercy. And I don't understand how someone comes to the conclusion that we should show no mercy. Tell me in the Gospels the constant reiteration of showing no mercy to those you hate, no mercy to those you dislike. And I'll be interested. Leave it in the comments. If anyone knows, please do. I'd love to learn. But I haven't come across that personally. From reading it, from listening to scholars, I haven't come to the conclusion that showing no mercy to your enemies is the Jesus way. But maybe I'm wrong.
I am absolutely sickened to be stood here today doing their job for them. Do you know what else? You're going home. You're going home. You're going...
I love that. You're going home. Very subtle there. Very nuanced. You're going home. Oh, Nick is a funny bloke. He is a funny man.
Home. You're going home.
I love the pointing. I love the... yeah, you, mate. You're going... Well, if he was born here, where is he going, Nick? Where are you going to deport him to? Maybe his idea is we convert, I don't know, some island into a deportation centre or just for communists. But then the issue is, again, how is that, the practicalities of that? Are we going to have a permanent prison for the stand up to racism people, or are we going to have a permanent prison for communists or and then let's say we're not, and we're going to send them home even though they were born here, right? And let's say they're completely English in the sense they have zero lineage to anywhere else. Where are you going to send them home? Because there's plenty of liberal white people who are born here and where are you going to put them? And then again, are you going to put them to a nation and take away their sovereignty? So we're just going to say mass immigration to a place. We're going to completely uproot their democratic right, the exact same thing you're complaining about here, and put people there.
Right. This is where it gets really, really disturbing.
Oh, this is where it gets disturbing, isn't it?
I personally know ordained clergy, ministers, who actually backed the BLM riots. They backed the left-wing extremists. We are surrounded by cowards. We are surrounded by weaklings suffering with Stockholm Syndrome and cognitive dissonance. It is absolutely pathetic. The left only have their way based on threats, bullying and intimidation. How people in authority pander to them is utterly, utterly disgraceful. It is weak and it is pathetic. All our leaders have to do is to stand up to the mob, but they are too afraid. They aren't brave enough, so we have to do it. We all know what happened in June 2020, patriots. A foreign, disgusting, degenerate career criminal called George Floyd resisted arrest and died of an overdose of a lethal narcotic known as fentanyl.
So whatever your views are of Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd situation, right? If someone dies, that's sad. I don't care who it is. I don't care what they've done. I don't care. It's sad, all right? Whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, if he died, that's someone's life being taken. If, well, let's say you're right wing and Jeremy Corbyn died, that's sad. It's someone's life gone. Like I don't need to agree with someone to view that if they die, that's a sad thing. So, like, everyone's made in the image of God. So to almost relish someone dying, I'm not saying he's relishing, but he's clearly not been the most empathetic bloke in history. I find a bit baffling because that George Floyd was made in the image of God. You know, God chose him to come into the world, and it's sad that he died. Even if people think he deserved it, it's still sad he died. Similarly, if, I don't know, some police officer also died, that's sad. I don't care who you are. It's sad if someone's life is gone. You know, they were here and now they're not here. That's sad. And I don't think we should ever act like that's not not the case. And it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with people. We should never come to the point, especially as Christians, where we're you know, not sad that someone's died. Like it's sad. Life is sacred. Life is precious, and we should really cherish everyone's life. And even if someone you might want to be dead, right? Let's say there's some horrible bloke, we shouldn't celebrate that person dying, because you know, people have friends, people have families. It's not just them that are affected, and someone's value as a human being, regardless of what they do, has value. And this is a framework that has been, you know, pushed into the brains in Western civilization. The notion that, you know, we are all have worth. It's like if you see someone at the bridge, right? Someone who's wants to take their own life, and it's devastating. It really is. You know, you don't go up to that person and be like, well, you're a horrible person. No one cares about you. Yeah, go, mate. No, we don't. We say that person has worth, and we stop that happening. That's why we have crisis centres. That's why we have Samaritans, the helpline, because we do view, even if from some people's materialistic view they don't have worth, we still say, no, that person does have worth, and it's better that you are here than you are gone. And we must never ever forget that. So I really don't like when, you know, someone's saying something like this. It's just grim, I think.
Millions of liberals cried a river about this here in Britain. We had to watch on as law enforcement cupped to left-wing terrorists rioting throughout the UK. Honestly, I could spit. Meanwhile, patriots...
He said, I could spit. Again, where are you getting this theology from, mate? Where are you getting this view? Do you think Jesus, in any point, if someone died, would celebrate their death? I do not think so. I think he would say, I'm sad that this person has gone, you know, regardless of who they were. Like Dismas on the cross, famously, when he asked Jesus for forgiveness, and he was not a good bloke, he forgives him. And I don't think he would spit and be like, nah, mate, you're not coming to heaven with me.
Are locked up for being conservative, and Christians persecuted for being Christian in a Christian land. I am absolutely sick of the injustice. I am sick of the wickedness. I am sick of the mental illness that is communism. I am sick of left-wing terrorists getting away with murder. I am sick of the media, law enforcement and our judges not calling out what this is: domestic terrorism and facilitation by our police and our courts. Time, patriots, time to put a leader in place who will round up these leftist fascists and send them home to countries like North Korea, where they belong. It is
So again, we go back to the point, well, why can North Korea, a place where they do have a leader, is authoritarian, why should we impose our policies on that country? They're an authoritarian regime and it's grim the way the people in North Korea are treated, but why should they endure mass immigration because we said so? That's just, like, it's just complete hypocrisy. It really is, like...
Time for justice. It is time to reclaim Britain. It is time to take our country back. Communist scum off our streets.
So he said communist scum off our streets. Very, very loving there. That's the famous love one another as I have loved you. That's, was that in Mark? Communist scum off our streets? Was that in Luke? I don't know. I must have, I need to reread it. Yeah, mate, I do not know how some people get to these conclusions. Communist scum off our streets. Ooh.
Communist scum off our streets. Off our streets. Communist scum 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 off our streets. Communist scum.
He's really a lot of in continuity with these chants and slogans, you know, really very creative, and it's very, you know, very impressive. He's got a creative flair there, doesn't he?
Off our streets, communist scum, off our streets. We are winning. No matter how loud the left scream, our words are cutting through. You now have both Labour and Conservative trying to outcompete each other over how many people they can send home. This is a direct result of our work. It is a direct result of our campaigning. It is a direct result of the work of patriots up and down the country, standing up and saying, no, we want these people gone. They do not belong here. This is a major victory for us. We are winning. This is working. All we have to do, guys, is keep calm and carry on. I have a little crowd over here. Citizens of Bristol. These people over here by the cenotaph, they are domestic terrorists. These people over here, they are domestic terrorists. These people, they are domestic terrorists.
In all fairness to Nick, right, there are definitely some dodgy looking people there. They're balaclavaed up and they probably would do him some harm. The police have got to hold him back. And I do not endorse that at all. And the fact that they're trying to physically harm him is completely unacceptable. And that is wrong. Having said that, he wants them banned, he wants them deported, let alone, I think he should have definitely the right to say that peacefully, and he should be able to express those views without the fear of being attacked. So it's appalling that people feel they have to physically attack people, cover themselves up to try and attack, to be anonymous. That's grim, and I completely do not endorse any form of violence. I don't care if you're left-wing, right-wing. If you want to attack someone physically because of their views, and you're going to do that at a protest or something, then that's just grim, right? Everyone should have their right to express themselves, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Sikh, even if you should even be defending people who say you should have your speech stopped. You should be defending that person to say that. And that's how extreme I go on the free speech issue. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Christian nationalism is on the rise. I thought I'd give you a little taster into Nick Tenconi, as he is a man who is growing in prominence, and he's quite an interesting bloke, speaks about Christianity a lot, and as this is a Christian channel, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of give my take on it and what's happening there. And there's some interesting, you know, stuff, and I do want to kind of address it because it is growing, and I think people shouldn't ignore it, but should wrestle with some of the views that some people in the UK hold. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like, subscribe if you did enjoy it. It mean a lot. But I love you all. Keep up the good work in your lives. Message me. Follow my Substack link below. It mean a lot. I'm going to do some articles and all that good stuff. But yeah, I love you all. Hope you did enjoy this video. Something a bit different. I might do some more of these. But yeah.